I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today we're going to talk a little bit about when if you're coming to Nicaragua in 2025. It's the end of the year. It's time to start making 2025 information videos. Believe it or not, there's only about 2 weeks left to go. And if you're coming in 2025, you need to start planning ahead already. And I know some people who have already started making some of these decisions for their trip and got bad information. So I want to start getting out there in front of it and getting correct information out there. So you're coming to Nicaragua, probably as a tourist. Maybe you're going to be relocating, but you're coming as a first-time expat and you have a little bit of time that you're going to be spending and you think you're going to need to bring some money with you. So how do you deal with having money to be able to go out and spend money in Nicaragua? What does spending money in Nicaragua look like? Well, we're going to cover that right after the bump. If you're heading to Nicaragua in 2025, there's a pretty good chance that you've seen some fake news announcements telling you that U.S. currency is no longer accepted in Nicaragua. This is 100% fake. There has never been any such announcement. There's never been any announcement that anyone could have misstrued for that. There was a completely unrelated announcement. We have a whole video that digs into what that announcement was about things that don't affect tourists or expats or really anyone in any way whatsoever, that had nothing to do with discontinuing US dollars for any purpose whatsoever. And yet, of course, people ran with that because it gets a lot of views on YouTube and other places. That is not true. There is no such thing. There is no changes, and the US dollar has always been available here. So what do you need to know if you're coming to Nicaragua? One is that everything is really easy. Just step back, take a deep breath. Everything is really easy. This is one of the easiest countries to deal with for currency. You don't have any real limitations. You don't have any real blockages. You don't have any of those negative things that sometimes you hear in certain countries. You don't have any weird exchange problems. You don't have any side markets to deal with, any black markets to deal with, any having to have cash. We're going to explain it all, but take that deep breath. Whatever you hear, what should go through your ear and into your brain is, oh, this is really easy. So let's start with first things first. What currency do we have here in Nicaragua? Nicaragua is a dual currency country. Technically, our official currency is the Nicaraguan Cordoba, but it is pegged to the US dollar at a rate that is very close to 37 to 1. Technically, it's 36 point blah, blah, blah. It's basically 37 to 1. It does not change with any frequency, so you don't have to worry about this floating or anything. Your exchange rate's going to be your exchange rate. If anything, it's going to change one time, but we don't have a prediction of when that's going to be, but it's on a creeping peg. We have an entire video that goes into how the Cordoba works. You can go reference that. If you want to learn more about it, you just find this interesting. All you need to worry about is that in your head, use 37 to 1 as a rough number to give a general ballpark of what everything is worth. So 37 Cordoba means $1. 74 Cordoba means $2, and so forth. But we also accept the dollar basically everywhere. You can get bank accounts in dollars. Obviously, as a tourist, you're not opening a bank account, but locals have bank accounts in US dollars and Cordoba very broadly. Every bank provides them. And importantly, every ATM dispenses Cordobas or dollars, depending on what you tell it to give. They all give both. Now, some will run out of one or the other just because they're empty. They don't necessarily keep them super full. So be aware of that. But in general, you have access to both anytime you need them. Now, of course, if you're going to be in Nicaragua spending money, you want to be spending Cordoba. It's easier to use. It is our currency. Using the US dollar does require a conversion. It's straightforward. Everyone does it all the time. We have bank accounts we can put it into, but unless you're paying like a rent or something really large where dollars make kind of sense just because they're less granular, you want to be working in Cordobas because many things are going to cost less than $1 or have amounts that you don't want to be giving whole dollars for. So for example, maybe a snack might cost 35 or 45 cents. You don't want to give $1 for that. It could be 2 or 3 times more than the thing is worth. How are they going to give you change, right? They can't, because that's the smallest denomination. We don't have cents here, only dollars, just from a practical perspective. If you're going to be buying something that's a little bit bigger, but it's like $2.50, again, $3, it's not tragic, but you do that every little thing, and the cost of things here in Nicaragua will inflate for you really quickly. Now, of course, it helps the local economy. You're just donating money. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but you'll feel pretty foolish spending an extra 20% on your vacation for no reason. So use Cordobas whenever you can. However, if you're just arriving and you haven't gotten Cordobas yet, because you should not get them before you get to the country, then have a few dollars just for that getting into the country thing. And when you're getting ready to leave, you're on your last few hours, don't take out more Cordoba, take out US dollars because they're going to be more broadly useful elsewhere. So if you're spending a little bit extra as you arrive and as you exit, that's fine. But for the bulk of your time here, you want to be using Cordoba. It's going to make your life just easier, and it's going to keep those costs down. Not because the prices are different, because the granularity is different. But you can always use both. If you just have dollars and you're like, I got to pay for this, all I have is dollars, that's perfectly fine. I have never seen anyone unwilling to take dollars, and I've never seen anyone who didn't know how it worked. It's unlike most areas of the world where currencies are confusing. Nicaraguans know both currencies inside and out. They are used to it. Everybody knows how they function. And no one has those myths of like, oh, if you pay in dollars, it's worth more or something. They don't have that, right? They have a completely standard exchange system, and it's always the same rate. Every business has to give you the government rate. The government gives you the government rate. The banks give you the government rate, and the people exchanging money on the street give the government rate. No one's going to give you a different rate, because if they did, someone would lose money and they would just go to the government and make that money back. Clearly, that's not going to work. So you're never going to find someone giving you a black market rate. It would be crazy for them to do so, and it would be crazy for you to seek it out. Makes no sense. This is a standard rate of exchange, and it is available everywhere, guaranteed, with unlimited amounts in both directions. So the whole concept of having another market for that just doesn't add up. So you're never going to find that. This is as simple and straightforward as it can be. Two currencies that are locked together, so you can just go back and forth transparently and use either at any time. Life is so easy. But I highly recommend using Cordoba. If nothing else, you're on vacation. Make it fun, right? Have colorful currency that you're not used to. It makes you feel more like you're in an exotic location. Plus, you get that advantage of granularity. It also makes it look like you're a little bit less of a tourist. When everyone's going around with dollars and staring at the buildings and taking a tour, you're just that much more obviously a tourist, which is not something you generally want. It just makes you stand out in negative ways. So blend in as much as you can. It's a real minor point, but that is what it is. So no worries there whatsoever. Now, if you're coming from a place like Europe or Canada where you don't have access to US dollars, have a little bit of US dollars as you come into the country. Maybe check with your banks. Just make sure you're on an international ATM system, right? Like Visa or whatever. But you come here to Nicaragua, we have ATMs just like, everywhere else. And you can, just put your debit card in there and take out either dollars or Cordoba. You can do that in all major locations. Just be aware. Get to places like the beach, for example. I'm here in Leon, and the beaches at Ponaloya and Las Piñatas currently do not have a single ATM. So you want to be careful that you're taking cash out there just in case, the power goes out or something. If you're going to Ometepe, there's very few ATMs, especially once you get away from Moyagalpa, the main harbor. So there's small places where you do want to have some cash with you, just because ATMs may be few and far between in that area. But any city or anything that you're in, you're going to have plenty of ATMs available 24 hours a day, no problems at all, and take out whatever currency you need at that time, US or Cordoba. Now, beyond that, do we take credit cards here in the country? Of course, street vendors generally do not. That would be very unusual. We are a generally cash economy in that way. There are some countries in the region where people do everything via electronic transfer and they never carry cash. We are not like that. We are still a cash economy in general. So if you're going to get street food, like street barbecue, asada as it's called, and you just want to walk up on the street and pay very small amounts and get some chicken right off the grill or whatever, that you want to have cash, right? And you want it to be Cordoba because it's very cheap, right? You may be looking at just a few dollars for your food. But if you're going to any real restaurants, you're going to stay at a hotel, anything like that, the expectation is they all take credit cards and debit cards. We don't have any limitations. It's not like Argentina where they take credit cards but not debit cards, stuff like that. No, we take everything. All the things are honored. It is as modern as it can be. Generally, we take contactless. Often you can use the Apple Pay, the Google Pay, that just tap your cards, and everyone's used to tapping cards. So that's just what they're going to do. They can use the chip, but they generally don't. They can swipe, but I can't remember the last time I saw that. Things that last time I was in the United States, we're still just starting to see people able to tap cards. Here, it's been years, and it's just what everybody does. We have that extra level of security and convenience here. Plus, during COVID, of course, a lot of places moved to contactless because it did reduce, people touching each other's cards. That's a huge way to transfer germs that was unnecessary, and most of the world didn't have, but the U.S. did. So here, we haven't had that, and everything's just super easy. So, and everything is accepted. Basically everywhere takes American Express, Discover, MasterCard, Visa, and sometimes a few others, plus all the local cards that you won't have. So there's a lot of flexibility here. I can use Amex here more easily than I can in the US, and it's pretty easy to use in the US. So that's really nice that everybody uses it. Now, if you are going to PriceSmart, is the one thing. Now, tourists don't go to PriceSmart because it's membership only. It's Costco, but our version of it, essentially, we're not going to go into the complexities of why it's not really Costco but is really Costco and blah blah blah. Anyway, they only take American Express or cash, so that's the only place that is a little bit different, and it's Amex that rules rather than loses out, so it's a little bit different than usual. But airports, everything, we take credit cards, and that's how we work here. So I have some videos where I dig into what credit cards to have for travelers, how to work with points, what way to think of them, which ones I recommend you have, and all that. So definitely watch that if you have any questions about your traveler's cards and your international rates on those and all those things and how to get maximum advantage from them. That's not what this video is for, but your credit cards and your debit cards all going to work at the ATMs, at the restaurants, at the hotels, on Airbnb, on booking.com, all those things, you are set. So even when we go out to the beach and stuff, we go to all the restaurants on the beach, we're always paying with card. We pay with card basically everywhere. We don't like to carry cash. We don't have a lot of violent crime here in Nicaragua, but we do have petty crime. So pickpockets and people looking for your cash, that is one of the risks that we have. And the money sticks together. It's easy to have it blow away, right? You're always outdoors. It's always windy. This is the tropics. Carrying a lot of extra cash isn't something you necessarily want to do. So eliminate some of that. Credit cards are very safe and they help keep tourist areas safe. So there's a lot of advantages both to us here in Nicaragua and to you as the person potentially carrying the money to just work with credit cards. Plus, in the end, you're probably going to get the best deal because you generally get the same price, cash and credit card. We don't have cash discounts typically. Here, once in a while you will, but it's pretty rare. So using using the credit card with where you're getting cash back or points or whatever is going to work mostly in your favor beyond just being a little bit safer for you. You can also use them at any grocery stores. You can use them at the mini marts, the mini supers as we call them, like AM, PM, and Pronto, and Super 7 and Super Express, all those. Gas stations, definitely credit card as well, all those things. The hospital is going to take credit card. Not the public hospital, that's free. But if you're coming and going to private hospitals for any reason, going to use a private doctor. Now, a private doctor that comes to your house, generally you're going to pay cash, right? They're not going to carry a credit card machine. But you're going to any of the local emergency clinics that are private. You go into a Moxa here in Leon, the private hospital, they take every type of credit card, and that's just what they expect to do. It makes life nice and easy. So credit cards are going to rule the day. And that's, for the most part, all you need to know. Don't bring lots of cash into Nicaragua unless you have a really specific reason for doing so. I know that people are told all the time that they should carry lots of cash. That is a terrible idea, and either comes from people who know very little about general travel or are taking things from completely different regions of the world and applying them without understanding how world travel works, or people who are trying to scam you by like selling you cash or whatever. There's a lot of money to be made from cash exchange services. So I know people who've been in Europe and are told, oh, your ATM cards won't work, your bank accounts won't be accessible, your credit cards won't work when you come to Nicaragua. While that's plausible, somewhere it is not a real problem. We are flooded with people from all over Europe, and if they couldn't use their cards regularly, we'd have major problems, but they can. That's how they shop, and that's how they do things. Nicaragua was a former Spanish colony, and so we are tightly integrated with Europe in a great number of ways, and loads of Europeans are coming here, even though we don't have direct flights yet, and it's an important part of the national economic infrastructure to have that transparent banking with Europe. And for the most part, we have that, especially for tourists. If you're going to become an expat and live here full time, then you can start running into some complications with your banks in Europe from time to time in ways that North American ones don't, but that has nothing to do with the banking infrastructure here. That has to do with policies and procedures and stuff with the banks in Europe simply deciding they don't want to keep their customers anymore, whereas American banks are much more likely to be like, no, we just want to make money. What's wrong with you? But that may be kind of a source of where some of it comes from, but you do not need to be carrying a lot of cash. As a general rule, unless you have a very specific reason to be carrying a lot of cash, it is a bad idea to carry large amounts of cash when going to new countries because it makes you a target, and you can only bring so much before you go into money laundering laws. Not that you're money laundering, just that you have to report the money and track it, and there's the risk that they're going to tax tax you at some borders, probably not all, but every once in a while. There's just a lot of extra problems that you don't need to have. You don't know what airport you're going to be rerouted through. If you're coming from Europe, you can't come directly to Nicaragua, so you have to worry about whatever country you're going through to get here. Are they going to tax you? Are they going to seize your stuff? You just got to be careful, right? You got to know every border you're going to deal with, and it's unnecessary risk that doesn't carry any advantages. Plus, if you're transferring, let's just say you have euros or Canadian dollars, you're going to transfer that to US in your own country, because you generally can't get Nicaraguan Cordoba abroad. So you're going to get US dollars. You're going to pay for that transfer to US dollars. Now you're already in the wrong currency. Then you're going to come to Nicaragua. Are you going to pay a premium on top by not having granular enough money? Even if you just go to dinner, right? You go to a nice restaurant downtown, dinner could be $26, right? Are you going to have the right change to be able to pay for whatever it is? The Cordobas is going to get you much closer. And sure, by that point, your numbers are not that big, the percentages that you're off, but your meal still may be 2 or 3, maybe even 5% more expensive because you have the wrong currency. And if you're doing anything on the street, it's going to be way more expensive. And if you're doing any market shopping, you are guaranteed the moment you pull out US currency, you have announced that you're accepting gringo prices for everything, and no one will ever give you an honest price where there is haggling. Now, most of you won't do much or any of that while you're on vacation, but it is worth noting that if you start working in US currency, any place that doesn't have published prices is expected to raise their prices on you. Taxis, market stalls, fruit vendors, anything like that. People know you aren't local and that you didn't get Cordoba. Like, you are seriously announcing that you're not looking for a really good deal. And you're always going to at least get rounded up, if not get kind of fake prices. You easily will end up paying double or more for a lot of those kinds of things. Again, probably a small amount of your spending. Your hotel's not going to change. Your restaurants are not going to change, those kinds of things. But it is worth noting. So I highly recommend that you just come to the country, take whatever currency is in your bank account, withdraw Cordoba from the ATM, and you are good to go. You're going to get your best exchange rate with the fewest numbers of exchanges, the fewest things to go wrong, the latest numbers, and you're going to have the right currency to use on the ground for the best results overall, and it's going to feel most like a nice, easy vacation with nothing to go wrong. It's all you really need to know about using money here in Nicaragua while you're on vacation in 2025. It really can't be easier. It really can't be more flexible. Whatever money you have, we're going to be able to figure out what to do with it. You do, when you land at the airport, have a money exchanger there. If for some reason you're coming in from Costa Rica and you're full of colones, or you're coming down from Guatemala and you got quetzales or whatever, you can go to those exchangers like at the airport and you can exchange basically anything for Nicaraguan currency there, and that won't be a problem. But most of the time, that's not something you'll be running into, but it does happen once in a while. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. I will put the link up. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAlMiller, and we've got a link down here to join our channel if you want to help support us on an ongoing monthly basis with a small amount. Really does make a big difference with all the things that we do here. We have nothing that we sell. We purely work off of donations and views and the ad revenue. That is all we have to cover a very high cost of making the show. So we really appreciate all the support. You guys make all the difference. Thanks for joining me. I will see all of you tomorrow.